Welcome to Amish Roots, plain talk in a modern world. Thank you for joining me. Even though I'm no longer part of the Amish church, I have no regrets about growing up Amish. The lessons I learned and the laid back way of life were both instrumental in how I now live my life. I can only speak for the way I and my family navigated this lifestyle, but I would not consider it a negative experience. The word I would use to describe my upbringing is values. You see, Amish children are not unlike any other children. From a young age, I recall that name calling was taboo at our house. Of course, we did it. I don't think any child would be honest if they said they never used an alternative name to address a sibling other than their given one. But if we were caught, we always got scolded for doing it. And one of my sisters thought everyone should have a nickname and was constantly giving us one, whether we wanted it or not. She started by calling me Ruthie, but after my many complaints and Mom admonishing her that my name was Ruth, she stopped. But then she moved on to calling me Rudy. Ah, to be honest, I believe it was more to punish me for complaining about Ruthie than anything else. But why Rudy? Why not Ruby? At least that would be a girl's name. This only stopped when Mom heard her doing it and reminded her that I was Ruth. As I was growing up, I often had and have people calling me Ruthie, but I gently remind them I am Ruth, and for the most part, people respect that. Probably the names we called each other that got us in the most trouble with our parents were idiot, stupid, and you're retarded. The last one always got us a huge scolding, and sometimes we received the bigger punishment, usually reserved for our swear words, the dreaded soap rubbed on your tongue. There is nothing like the taste of perfumed soap to keep bad words from bubbling out of your mouth. Lying was also punished. And seriously, I soon learned that telling the truth was far easier than lying and being found out about it later. The biggest lie I remember telling my parents was when I was in grade 8. I really liked sports, and I tried out for all the teams. And because I was athletic, I usually got picked. We had our tournaments in school hours, so it was never an issue getting to the events, as the boys and girls teams traveled together on the bus. But one particular day, we were told that a team from another district was coming to play the girls' volleyball team at our school. The problem was that it was after school hours this time, so we all had to arrange our own ride home. This was a problem. I had no one to pick me up, and there was no one on the team that was going my way. The girls on the team were begging me to stay, and the coach also wondered if there was a chance that I could play, as I was considered a valuable asset. Not wanting to outright lie, but wanting so badly to stay, I told the coach I was going home with another teammate, which was partially true because she lived on the edge of town and I walked to her house with her. It was here that things became a bit dicey. It was now dark, and I had to walk 3 kilometers to our farm by myself. I knew my parents would never have allowed me to do this had they known what I was doing. As I walked, I wondered how I was going to explain how I got home. Each step I took, I became more afraid, not only about my explanation, but because trudging along in the dark all alone was starting to scare me. To shorten the distance, I decided to cut across a field to the next road, when suddenly their dog started to bark loudly, having spotted me. Fearing not only the dog, but that I was trespassing on someone else's property, I quickly veered back onto the roadway. After being at school all day, then playing a couple of games of volleyball, and now walking so far to get home, I was becoming exhausted. My emotions were also starting to get to me. I was worried about explaining why I was so late. I was scared of being alone in the dark, and I wondered if my tired legs could carry me home. It was right about then, 1 kilometer from home, a car stopped. Knowing I could not take a ride from a stranger, I was so relieved to see our neighbor. She asked if I needed a ride, and I gratefully accepted. She drove me out to the farm, and I told her I would walk in the laneway because I didn't want her telling anyone she had picked me up on the road. Unknown to her, she had now become my ride home from the volleyball game. It was a believable story for my parents because our neighbors also had children that went to my school. My parents never heard the part of the story that the children were not at the game. I felt so guilty for days and weeks about what I had done, knowing it was against every rule my parents had laid out for us. I don't know if they ever found out, but they never said a word about it to me, and I never, ever did it again. Now, because I was part of a big family, we did not have a lot of personal possessions, but what each of us had was considered ours. And although we were encouraged to share, it was not mandatory. Well, unless a fight broke out. As I told you in a previous vlog about the store that came to our farm and the owner giving us candy, while one of my sisters was saving every piece she got and was hiding it in her dresser drawer. I'm not sure why. We knew it was there because she bragged about how she was going to have lots of bubble gum and we would not have any, which in hindsight seems rather silly because we were enjoying ours, knowing that next week we would get some more. What my sister did not count on was a brother who could not resist temptation. One day, she noticed that her stash had been compromised, and she was on the warpath to find out who had stolen some of her gum. Questioning each of us, she finally found the culprit, with his cheeks chipmunk size, chewing on about 10 pieces of gum. After ratting him out, it was decided that when the grocery van came, my brother had to give up his piece of gum until the debt was repaid. This was another lesson learned the hard way. So, you see, we were quite normal, even if we were Amish. We tested our boundaries and our parents' patience. Today, I appreciate everything I was taught. Because why do I need to degrade someone by calling them names that are unkind? Lying is never beneficial and actually ends up making me feel guilty. And why should I claim something as mine that doesn't belong to me when it wasn't even mine to begin with? You know, this all made perfect sense to me until a few years ago when the knowledge that if I had never been taught these lessons, I could now be president of the United States. I'm just teasing. Because seriously, they never elect women. I would like to encourage you to keep your morals and hang on to your values because trust me, it will get you a bigger reward than being president. Mach's gut and see you next week.